Good afternoon, everyone. We are back for the Catch Max podcast. Your host, Ben Tippett here, along with Adam Crossway. We're ramping up towards the Stars' first Big Bash game. Maxie's on tonight with the boys. But we've got a very, very special guest, one of the Melbourne Stars, let's say, iconic players throughout their time, Seb Gotch. Welcome, Sebby.
Benny, Crossy, thanks for having me. Iconic. I'm not sure if that's the right word, Benny, but a player nonetheless. Very excited to get on.
We'll talk about why you're iconic in a minute, but obviously not just a Big Bash player yourself. You played quite a bit of Shield cricket in the end, sort of 29 matches, 200s as a keeper bat. We just had a bit of a talk offline just about some of your experiences. What was sort of your debut and your first coming into the Shield team? It was a bit of an interesting story.
Yes, it was. I've spoken about this before, and Andrew McDonald, he gets stuck into me every now and again, but it was basically a last resort kind of option. Came in to keep against WA over at the Wacker. Wadey dislocated or broke his collarbone. Pete Hanscom broke a finger. Aaron Eyre, I think he did his back or something. So we literally had no one else. I don't think I'd kept in a year or two. Went in, took the gloves, led through 40 odd buys, which Crossy, I'm sure you've never done before in your time. But my family, mum, dad, grandma, grandpa, nana and pare, they all flew over for the game, and we lost in 2 days. So they stayed there they had full 4 days booked, and we already made our way back to Melbourne. So it was a very memorable trip, and it was quite interesting that I got another game straight after. Can't remember why. There must have been ongoing injuries in that, but we went on and won the Shield that year. So very, very fortunate to be picked at that time.
And look, you're underselling yourself, and you did have a few injuries through your career. We'll talk about what sort of ended your career a little bit later, but when you did get back in the team, back-to-back hundreds, I believe your 200s were back-to-back, weren't they?
They were back-to-back. New South Wales, people at that time, everyone was like, oh, you must be in good form, back-to-back hundreds. I think I got dropped on 4 and 40 against New South Wales. And then I got dropped on a duck and 3 against Queensland the next week. So I was in the same form that I was always in. I think I was just getting dropped. So it was a nice little period there to get some runs and contribute to, like, I'd been given so much via the team. Like, I played with some incredible players that were always standing up and putting in great performances. So whilst it is a team game, it is nice to at least contribute at some point in your time. So it was a pleasing little period there.
And Seb, 650s. Sorry, you go, Crossy.
I was just going to say on the back of that, Seb, you're selling yourself short. You're a Victorian wicketkeeper, played in Shield finals and making first class hundreds, and as you said, 650s to go with it. How did you find? I guess you talk about early time coming in with the gloves, but then settling into that Victorian side and sort of occasionally in and out of the team, you and Sammy Harper. How did you find that whole situation with Victoria and the gloves?
I loved it. I think Victoria at that time, like when I started, we had the team would have consisted of Bobby Quiney, Whitey, Dan Christian, Sids, Paddo, Finchy was playing, Maxie was playing, Stoyne was in there. Geez, who else? The Duck, John Holland, Deanie, Marcus Harris, like those guys, those names, before you'd even taken the field, you just felt a bit of presence about you. And I can imagine coming up against us at that time for young guys, it would have been quite intimidating. So, for me being out there with them, as intimidating as it was for everyone else, it was almost a massive boost of confidence to me, knowing that I've got these guys standing right behind me. And the thing that I felt they did really well, and Whitey probably led this the most, was I got a 20 or a 30 off, a few balls. I'd face 80 or 90 balls and really knuckle in. They really appreciated that. Like, that was my contribution to the team. It didn't need to be a big 100 or didn't need to be something outside of probably my capabilities, but my contribution as the player that I was always recognised by the team. So I think that's what made us so successful. We enjoyed each other doing what we expected of each other, and we also got around the fact that someone would do that.
Absolutely, and you had a pretty big role off the field, I hear, sort of as the was it the postseason, maybe after party postseason coordinator for a few years there.
I think Trav Dean was probably more in charge of that. I like to get involved. Don't worry about that. We had plenty of occasions to celebrate, but there was a famous coach that once said to me, "Win or lose, sink your boots." So that always kept us very level-headed. But yeah, it's a great time of year, the end of year celebrations, especially when you win. Still fun when you haven't won, but yeah, Trav Dean definitely led the charge there. John Holland was also a strong contributor on those days. I think he actually bought a slushy machine one Mad Monday, like bought one on Facebook Marketplace or something, went and picked it up in the car at 7 a.m. and bought it back and filled it up. Daiquiri machine. So,
nice.
That sort of effort doesn't go unnoticed. Like that's an incredible little feat for John, especially in the state he was in. So, it was some good days there, some good memories.
I love it, mate. We'll take you back onto the field and your time with the Melbourne Stars. Yeah, we spoke about you being iconic at the start of this, but Stars fans and Victorian fans alike were always were very popular with the fans and with the public, mate. Take us back to your Stars days and and your Big Bash, start of your Big Bash career.
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago now. I actually started at the Strikers. So in the sad time of the Phil Hughes incident, they basically needed to fill a spot. So I got a call from Chuck Berry. I was out on the boat down with my uncle, and he said, "We've got a trial match coming up. We want you to come over and have a hit." And I went over to South Australia. We played a couple of 2020s actually, and walked out to bat. And Sean Tate was bowling downwind from one end, which was great. So I'm trying to secure a spot, and this guy's bowling 160-kilometer rockets. And from there, ended up getting selected. Didn't play any games, but spent a bit of time with them. And then Huss called me the next year and said, "We want to get you at the Stars." And one thing sort of led into another. But even that team starting out there, we had such an incredible team. Like we talk about icons, KP was in there, Luke Wright, James Faulkner was just at the peak of his powers, Maxi. It was an incredible setup to be a part of. Something that at that time, I think I might have been 23 years old, was a pinch yourself moment. I didn't really play any cricket, but we got invited to plenty of different venues, and we had some dinners, and I walked around like a bit of a rock star, even though no one knew who I was. But it was an incredible period of my life, and something I look back with fond memories.
And you were a bit different. That's why I say iconic. You were a guy who didn't crouch much when you were keeping, standing up and wearing the short sleeves, and also known for wearing a bit of a bucket hat or a floppy hat at times. So you had your own way of going about things. That seemed to be something that was really embraced with the Stars culture. Can you talk a little bit about just the individuality and the way you guys sort of went about things a little bit differently to others?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like my idol growing up was a guy called Ash Midland. He was just a local cricketer down here in Melbourne. He was the keeper of the ones at the Melbourne Cricket Club. Big, strong fella, landscaper, wears a wide brim hat and a short sleeve and just sledges everyone. And I loved him. And when I started keeping for Melbourne, that's sort of what I thought was the guy. So I like to do that out of respect to him. And then when I got picked to play that game for the Stars, Stephen Fleming came up to me before and he goes, do you wear short sleeves when you keep? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he goes, oh, are you going to do it today? And I was like, I think so. Is that an issue? And he goes, no, that's great. If you do it, at club cricket, make sure you do it here. And I honestly didn't really know it was that big a deal. And then when I came off the ground, I was trending on Twitter. I copped a bit of abuse online. Had some DMs in the Instagram account saying that I brought the game into disrepute. And I loved it. I loved it. Any attention is good attention, but that was something that Flem always backed, being, just being yourself. I think cricket's a hard enough game if you're trying to emulate someone else. And I went out there and instantly, even though it was just wearing short sleeves or wearing a bucket hat, you felt like you had the support of your coach. Like, it's a very simple and almost irrelevant gesture, but something that, to me, just sort of, it oozed a bit of belief from Flem. Like, he was a very clever operator, great coach, and he just allowed everyone to express themselves in whatever way that was. And we had a unique team that there was some odd characters in that team, like Zamps and Stoyan at some stage, where they may have been in a relationship, they may not have been, I don't know. Maxi doing his own thing, just however that was meant to be. We had KP in the team. Like, God, there would be days he'd rock up to training and just be like, I don't feel like it today, not today, no. And he'd just leave. And if you try and control that and you try and generate a culture that's disingenuous to the people that are in that culture, then you're going to have issues. And I think we just decided to embrace everyone and what they bring and try and combine that into entertainment on the field, which seemed to work.
Well, Stephen Fleming would have loved it because he had Adam Perore, who was the only other one that I saw.
Correct, the double sweatband.
Keep with the short sleeves. But mate, take us to your thoughts on the BBL at the moment. We're heading into, obviously, the season kicks off today. You're obviously still in and around cricket yourself, and just get your general thoughts on the Big Bash as we head into the Big Bash season.
It's interesting. I feel like there's been so much cricket over the last 6 months or however long it's been, from the Ashes through to the World Cup. It doesn't have that same feel to me as the old days where, it used to be footy and cricket and it'd be split and you'd sort of be itching for that next game of cricket to watch. But in saying that, I would expect to be a little bit drained by the last couple of months, but the standard and the quality seems to be getting better somehow. Like, the innings that we saw over in India, like Maxi doing what he was doing, was to people online. I saw them talking and saying, like, what was he doing? Like, standing dead still and hitting sixes. Like, this is phenomenal. It's exactly what he does in the nets. Like, if I bowled a bad ball to him some days, he would not move and just hit it back to me in sort of disdain and just be like, try again. And he's not someone that goes out there and flukes things. Like, he is someone that practices these things relentlessly. And I think that goes underappreciated sometimes. People just assume that he's a superstar, which he is, but it's not always the case. Like, guys have to master their craft, and he's put in so many hours of work getting to where he is that I think his dedication and his application is more admirable than the fact that he can reverse sweep blokes buying 140k over the third man. But that's what sort of got me geared up for the BBL. The standard keeps rising, so I'm sort of in anticipation of what's coming next. Like, how does this game keep getting better and better? And there's going to be something that we see this year that no one's done, and then it's going to just continue to evolve the game.
And you talk about getting better and better, but you were around on probably the peak of Big Bash at 80,000 at the MCG, Renegade Stars. Talk to us about the excitement going into that game and just the atmosphere on the night.
Insane. The build-up was really solid. Like, I think we sold 70-odd thousand tickets prior. So you always know when you got those pre-ticket sales, it's going to be a big game. I reckon I was 16th man and I had a hit on the oval. Like, I warmed up out there. Like, I wasn't even in the squad, but I was getting throws in the net, going around. I had my playing top on. I don't know if people realise, but you got your training gear that's just your Stars stuff, like at my own say Melbourne Stars. Then you got your playing top that has your name. So I would always wear my playing top when I went out because people probably wouldn't know who I was. So I just had to get my name on the back to make sure people had some idea. But that game was remarkable. I think Righty made 100 that game. I reckon he slapped one through backward point to win the game and sort of got down on his knees and celebrated. And the vibe going back into the rooms, that was incredible. Just seeing how many people were there, the change in what we were bringing as a product as well. In terms of 2020 cricket, it was a big moment to be a part of, but a bigger moment for the game.
Mate, it was huge, and I remember watching that match and just thinking that I agree that the whole thing had just changed. To be able to get 80,000 people to a domestic game of cricket was outstanding. What about the Stars this year, mate? What do you think of their list and their squad as we go into the Heat game tonight?
2020, such a bizarre game. 2020, like you can have certain players, you can bring in 4 of the best batters in the world, and your bowling stocks might be a bit short, or vice versa. The team balance concept is so crucial. So seeing how all those new players come together in the first couple of games always gives you a pretty clear indication of what's missing, what's working. So for me, the draft system, bringing in new guys from overseas, it takes some understanding, especially as being a player as well. Like I got shuffled around the order quite a bit because you tend to make way for your big dogs, the guys that you're bringing in, you're paying money to. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that structure. To me, it feels like there's 5 or 6 ways they can go about structuring that team list. I think the Renegades, to me, have a really, really strong list. They look pretty sound, but we've seen so many times before, the best team doesn't win 2020s. It's the ones that come together and build that structure and understand what they're meant to be doing. So whoever can figure out that earlier in the season tends to go a long way in the competition. So notoriously, I think we start pretty poorly, the Stars. So hopefully we can get off on the right foot tonight and change things a little bit.
And mate, it'll be interesting there because it's gone from 8 games when you played to out to 14, back to 10. So you're right. You probably don't have the opportunity or you're not afforded the opportunity to drop a couple early now. We're going back to 10 games. Every game's got a bit more on the line. But I wanted to ask you about that, what you think the right number of games is. And then I got another question about dropping important games that I'll come back to. But what do you think the right number of games for the Big Bash competition is?
Well, very interesting question. Looking into it, the more games we play, the more games are on TV, the more revenue it generates for Cricket Australia and the players and everyone involved, which is running a business. You want to make money. But also at the same time, running a sustainable business, you have to understand when you're sort of flogging a dead horse a little bit. So for me, early days playing 8 games was great over 2 months because we used to travel 3 or 4 days beforehand and just really, turn one on. But now you're traveling, you're playing, you're traveling, you're playing. And I think the point you make there, 14 games, they're not as important as 8 games. You can have a lapse here, you can have a lapse there, and the fans are almost afforded a lapse as well. They go, oh, we'll catch the Stars next game at the MCG. They'll be back in a couple of days. Whereas, we played 3 or 4 home games throughout that 8-game period, and we were packing out stadiums, or at least getting sort of 50,000+. So the sustainability of the game, I would say between 8 and 10 feels to me like the right number. But in terms of making money, the more you can chuck in there and dominate December, January, where there's no real competition, I also understand as well. But it's a fine line between, making sure you get it right, and those decisions are left for people much smarter than me, Ben.
No, I think you've done very well to answer that one. Talking about the best team doesn't always win. I want to take you back to the final against the Renegades at Etihad. Obviously, the Stars have been such a strong team for so many years. Finally, in a final, you're in a really strong position to win the game. What happened?
It's a very good question, mate. I don't know the exact answer for you. I think we must have been like none for 100 or somewhere around there. I think I might have even been planning where we were going that night when the boys were in there. I was on the phone getting the list ready for whichever establishment we were rolling into, and then next minute I was hustling back to the change room to get my pads on. But it's 2020 cricket. Like, it can change so quickly, but it consumed a lot of us. I think that quick shift of having momentum to having you back up against the wall certainly did for me. Like, I can't even remember the balls I faced. I think that's what pressure does sometimes. You lose clarity, you go out there, and a 5-minute innings can feel like 10 seconds because it just takes you and consumes you. And I will never lose the image of Whitey winning and just giving that fist pumping towards the bench, which I feel like was personally directed at myself from Cam. But yeah, it would have been a great final to watch as a cricket lover, but it was a difficult one for us to take, being so close and having worked so hard to fall short, being in such a good position. It's, if I think too much about it, I think I'll get upset. But yeah, you got to move on from those things, and hopefully we've got the team now that can take us one step further.
And is it because of that Stars culture we talked? I mean, we've spoken to Maxi a lot on this, and people that know him really well, and he takes a pay cut at the Stars because he wants a good team around him and he just wants to win. Does that come from that culture that perhaps Flem built when you were sort of talking about earlier?
Yeah, potentially. It might have come from the 3 million that he gets from IPL as well. But I do like, yeah, Maxi has made some big sacrifices for the Stars, and I think that there's no one more passionate if you look at the way he conducts himself on the field. There's probably never been a more passionate Stars player, and he'll go down as one of the best, if not the best, Stars player that we've had. And I don't know when it started. I wasn't at the Mel. I walked into that culture. It could have started with Flem. It could have started well before that, when guys like Cameron White were there, and we had Shippy as the coach. And I know from playing under Shippy at Victoria, he's a man that does remarkable things with teams and with people, and understands culture and what's required. So when that culture started, I'm not sure, but the people have carried that culture through, and Glenn's an example of that. I think winning to him is first and foremost, which I think it has to be at professional level. But then he also knows what needs to be done to win, and there are different things that teams need to do with salary cap and with position of batting and players. And I'm not sure there's anything that you could throw at Maxi that if he thought it would help us win, he would say no to. So I think that's an example of someone that loves the club that he's playing for and what he's doing.
Oh, that's great. Just back onto yourself quickly, and a little bit touchy, but finger injury that you had probably cut your career well short of what you would have liked to do. Can you talk us a little bit through what happened and then into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I had a couple of bad breaks with the fingers. Nothing was too bad to get through at times, but I had one after those back-to-back hundreds. Billy Stanlake actually got me in the first innings. One just reared up and it sort of cracked it. And then that was day one of that game. Then day 4 of that game, I got hit again, keeping with, I think they were 9 down at Queensland. So we were about to win the game, got hit, and it did some pretty severe damage. It sort of lifted it back and over and around. And when I had that operated on, there were a few complications. There was a lack of blood supply to the end of the finger. So the bone, basically, if you imagine when the body has to eat, you get nutrients from eating. The bone wasn't getting that blood supply. So it started to disintegrate, and it was turning sideways. And it was just really painful. I couldn't hold the bat right. I still played a few games after it, but the more it started to bend and the more pain involved, I was noticing myself dropping, like I couldn't catch right-handed when keeping. That was probably the hardest thing to handle. Just sort of, I dropped 3 catches off Duck one day when he was bowling. So those were things that were pretty challenging. And then just got to the point where, I wasn't the best version of myself with a bat or gloves. And, professional sports, like, you got to be at the top of your game to be able to contribute. And, I just wasn't quite there. So I had to pull the pin, and it was disappointing, but at the same time had an incredible run. Had some great memories of Victoria, 2 shields, played with some amazing people along the way. So you can't focus on the little unfortunate finger. You got to take into account the bigger picture. So I was incredibly fortunate to have had what I had.
It's such a mate. It's such a tough luck story because you were playing so well. Your keeping was coming along, and you were making runs, and it's a hard one as a wicket keeper. I know how much they hurt and how tough it is, and it's mate, my heart goes out to you, and it did at the time. It still does, but I think you can definitely hold your head up high, mate. You're a great contributor, as you said. Shield, 2-time Shield winner, Melbourne Stars icon, as Tippo says, and it's mate, it's so good to chat to you, and thanks for coming on, and yeah, we really appreciate it as we head into the Stars game tonight.
No, boys, I really appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. It's going to be a very exciting year for the Stars, and no, I'm always watching with a keen eye and hoping we're doing well. So looking forward to tonight.
Thanks for joining us, Gotchy. You can jump off, and Crossy and I will wrap up.
Beautiful,
thanks very much for
Thanks, Seb.
joining us.
No worries. Chat to you soon.
Cheers, mate.
Mate, that was great. Like, obviously, what a fella Seb is. His story is fantastic. As we said, like, he just was one of those iconic players when he was playing for the Stars, and could unfortunately still be going around again. He was such a great player, and I know I used to manage Seb, and there was even some talks behind the scenes about potential higher honours at the time. He was starting to go that well, so it's just such a shame that his career got cut when it did. But as you said rightly, he had a massive impact in the time he was there.
Yeah, one of the things about Seb Gotch, and obviously as a former Victorian keeper, you watch the wicket keepers very closely, and one of the things that speaking to every one of his teammates is they said that he was just such a good teammate.
Yeah.
He was a guy that was always around. He was always willing to do things, and you can sort of hear that in the way that he speaks and the way that he goes about it. To have your finger be a thing that cuts your career short is such a hard thing to take. But yeah, lovely guy, very good cricketer, great keeper, and as you said, iconic. I was one of those ones, and Seb will watch this later. I was one of those ones that wasn't happy with him wearing the short sleeves, but the way that he just explained it then was excellent. He was himself. He played like that. He was great for Victorian cricket, and yeah, it's good to see him still playing cricket and not lost to cricket altogether. But it was a tough way to finish his first class career, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and mate, so it was great to have Seb on. We've got some other exciting news, though. Obviously, going into Big Bash tonight, we're bringing Catch Max. Finally, we're launching it hard into Australia.
Mate, super exciting to have Catch Max being properly launched into Australia right in time for the Big Bash post World Cup, where obviously Maxi had a huge World Cup and coming back as a world champion, and now rolling into what we know is going to be such an epic Big Bash. Yeah, mate, can you just explain to us explain to our Catch Max people what we've got coming up and how it looks?
Absolutely. So if you're not a Catch Max member, jump onto www.catchmax.io to join up. You can create your own membership pass there. And what that does is it allows you to get basically exclusive access and closer to Maxi than ever before. We've got heaps of deals with his sponsors that are unique to Catch Max members. We've got heaps of competitions we're going to be running through the Big Bash. We've got signed merchandise to give away, some of his playing shirts. We've got some signed Missouri mini helmets, some mini cricket bats from Kookaburra that we're going to give away. KO's on board. So if you don't have the ability to stream cricket, we've got some KO vouchers that we can give away and heaps more. The other thing we're going to do is have Maxi on in this type of setup where people can come in and ask him questions about how he's going and anything they want to know. So there's so much stuff packed in there. Right now, membership's free, so we're going to jump on there, get your membership, and get closer to Maxi than ever before. Yeah,
it's awesome, and it's awesome to be involved with it. And I think you touched on it. The best is the access that you have to Glenn, and the way and the insight. Obviously, we've got Glenn's manager here, so knowing the inside of what's going on with him and his career, but then to hear from himself as well, to to really get that inside info. And hopefully now he's back in Australia, back in the Big Bash. Hopefully we can get some really cool insight into what's going on with the Stars, and then moving into some international cricket, and then back over to the IPL, which is always exciting. And we know we've got a massive fan base in India, and they love watching the Big Bash, but we love getting over there to Bangalore and watching we've got the auction coming up as well. So we'll hope some insights from Maxi and what goes on at the auction and how exciting that is. So mate, the Catch Max train is rolling on, and it's super exciting heading into tonight's game against the Heat.
Absolutely. And we're going to announce something in the next couple of weeks. There is a massive, massive thing that's going to happen at the last Stars v Hurricanes game, which is the last Stars home game of the year. You need to be a Catch Max member to win that prize, but it's going to be one of the biggest things you've seen. So we'll announce that in a couple of weeks, but there's just a bit of a teaser to get everyone excited there.
It's going to be super exciting. Obviously, we've been working on this for a while now, and it's all coming together, and we can't wait to make it public. And it's definitely worth being a Catch Max member. Something that money can't buy. Is something that you'll know more about in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. Finally, before we go, Crossy, who's your tip tonight? Stars Heat?
Mate, I've got the Stars tonight. I think coming back, obviously our man Maxi's been in amazing form. I think Marcus Stoinis has got a little bit to sort of the forgotten man of that World Cup a little bit, and I think he's got some things that he'll write. Look, I think it'll be a great way to kick it off, and it's going to be an outstanding game. But yeah, I've just got the Stars getting over the line tonight to start off their campaign. As Seb said, they're not great starters normally, but I think there's some really big firepower in the middle with Bo Webster, Stoinis, and Maxwell. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes.
Absolutely. Well, Webster not playing, actually, and it was going to be my point. Merlot's come into the squad there, but it's probably a good time for the Stars to get the heat with a couple of guys out for the Prime Minister's 11 game, which Bo Webster's part of. So a couple of numbers out, but it's affecting the Heat more than it is the Stars. So that's my reason for picking the Stars tonight. And, of course, you know, Maxi in the form of his life. Some of those big players like Stoyan, as you said. Joe Burns is one who we haven't seen for a while in Melbourne Stars, guys, coming off a few injuries. So he's back. And then the likes of Nathan Coulter-Nile up and about, just a big bash specialist now, isn't he? Comes in and from all reports during the practice games, bowling really well. Brody Couch, big things from young Couchy as well, as impressed in the practice games too. So plenty to look forward to in Team Green tonight. Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting one. And the other one who I like, who the Stars have just picked up, is Corey Roccacelli. I think has sort of found himself in the Stars squad. So look, they've got a deep squad. Sam Harper as well, coming across from the Renegades, who's just in some outstanding Sheffield Shield form. Yeah. We saw him just break the record for the fastest 100 or fastest 150, I should say. So I think that's a great get from the Melbourne Stars. And I think if players like Harper, as you say, Coulter-Nile, the guys that sort of that second tier player, can step up, it's going to really take some pressure off the big show and the big couple of guys in the middle there. So can't wait for it to all kick off. Absolutely. I think Maxi's going to bat sort of 3 or 4 tonight. It'll be interesting. He play that role that he does at RCB, but obviously I don't 100% know that, but I know he was saying how well that Harps, as you mentioned, and even Tommy Rogers have been going, so they'll probably go in up the top, and obviously Stoyan and then Maxi, depending on how they're going, will either come in at 4 or maybe float. So really interesting to see what role he has under new coach Peter Moores, who has also made a really big impact in such a short period of time. Yeah, I think it's really exciting that role that Maxi played through the IPL. If he can bring that type of setup into the Stars and into the Big Bash. Obviously, we missed the whole Big Bash last year with these broken legs. So it's going to be great for him to get back out there in green, and hopefully he can turn it on tonight.
Absolutely. Crossy, thanks so much for your time. Obviously, we didn't do it live tonight. We did pre-record just so we could get Seb on, but we'll upload this so everyone can have a listen. But thank you very much again for your insight, and enjoy the game tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, I think the Stars in a close one.
Absolutely. Me too. Don't forget to jump onto the website, www.catchmax.io, and get your Catchmax membership right now. We'll see you next time.